Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Have you ever seen someone underestimate another person so badly that it completely backfires? Because today's story is exactly that. It's about arrogance, assumptions, and a single moment that flipped the balance of power in a way nobody saw coming. It was a quiet evening in one of the most luxurious restaurants in the city. The kind of place where the floors shine like mirrors. The lights are warm and golden, and the menu doesn't list prices because, honestly, if you have to ask, you don't belong there. Soft piano music floated through the air. Glasses clinked gently, and conversations were spoken in hushed, confident tones. That's when he walked in. Everyone noticed him immediately. He was tall, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, with a watch that probably cost more than most people's cars. His posture screamed confidence, or maybe entitlement. This was Victor Langston, a self-made millionaire known not just for his wealth, but for his ego. He was famous in business circles for being brilliant, ruthless, and painfully condescending to anyone he thought was beneath him. Victor scanned the room like he owned it, then chose a table near the window. As he sat down, he tapped his fingers impatiently, already looking annoyed. As if the world was running too slowly for his liking. That's when she approached the table. Her name was Lena. She wore the standard uniform of the restaurant. Crisp white shirt, black apron, hair neatly tied back. Nothing flashy, nothing that stood out. She looked calm, composed, and quietly professional. If you glanced at her for more than a second, you'd notice her eyes were observant, thoughtful, and sharp. But most people didn't look that closely. Victor barely glanced at her at all. She smiled politely and said, "Good evening, sir. Welcome. May I start you off with something to drink?" Victor leaned back in his chair, smirking. His eyes flicked over her uniform, then back to her face with clear amusement. "Let me make this interesting," he said loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. "Serve me in English, and I'll pay you $1,000. A few people turned their heads. Some raised their eyebrows. Others exchanged awkward glances. Lena blinked once, clearly surprised, but she didn't look offended. She didn't rush to respond either. She simply waited, giving him her full attention. Victor laughed, shaking his head. "You heard me. English. Perfect English. Not broken, not accented. If you manage that through the entire service, the 1,000 is yours." He said it like it was a joke, like he was tossing spare change to a street performer. Inside, Victor felt clever. He assumed she was an immigrant, struggling with the language. Someone who'd stumble over words and embarrass herself trying. In his mind, this was entertainment. A harmless flex of power. What Victor didn't know was that Lena had spent years learning how to stay calm in moments exactly like this. She nodded once, politely. "Of course, sir," she replied smoothly, her English clear, steady, and natural. "Would you like still or sparkling water?" Victor froze for just a split second. It was subtle, but it was there. He hadn't expected that. He recovered quickly, waving a dismissive hand. "Sparkling. Let's see how long you keep that up." Lena poured the water with steady hands, placing the glass perfectly in front of him. "May I also recommend today's special?" she continued. "The sea bass is excellent this evening." Her tone was professional, her pronunciation flawless. Victor frowned slightly, but said nothing. He ordered an expensive appetizer, a premium steak, and a bottle of wine that cost more than Lena's weekly paycheck. As she wrote everything down, he watched closely, almost hoping she'd slip up. She didn't. Minutes passed. Then more. Lena returned with the appetizer, describing the dish with ease, explaining the ingredients, the cooking method, and even the origin of the olive oil. Her vocabulary wasn't just good, it was impressive. Victor's amusement started to fade. When she placed the plate down, he raised an eyebrow. "Not bad," he said. "Where did you learn English?" Lena smiled gently. "I studied it for many years, sir." That answer annoyed him. It was too simple, too confident. He muttered. "Well, let's raise the stakes." He leaned forward, lowering his voice slightly, but still loud enough for others to hear. "English is common. Anyone can learn English. How about this? Say something in French. If you can manage that, I'll make it 2,000. A few nearby diners gasped softly. Lena didn't hesitate. "Beans, sir, monsieur," she replied instantly, her French smooth and elegant. "Souhaitez-vous que je vous explique le vin en detail?" Victor's mouth opened, then closed. For the first time that evening, he didn't laugh. The table next to them went silent. One woman covered her smile with her napkin. A man across the room leaned back, clearly entertained. Victor cleared his throat. "Lucky guess," he said. "French isn't that hard." But now, his confidence had cracked. Lena returned with the wine, poured it with practiced grace, and continued the service flawlessly. Victor tried to maintain control, but something inside him had shifted. He no longer felt superior. He felt challenged. He wasn't used to that. When Lena returned again, Victor leaned back and smirked, trying to regain his dominance. "All right then," he said. "Spanish. Let's hear your Spanish." Lena nodded. "Claro que sí. Se sabe. Switching languages, effortlessly. Si necesita alguna recomendación adicional, estaré encantada de ayudarle." Someone laughed out loud. Victor's face turned red. He waved his hand sharply. Enough. You've made your point. But Lena didn't look smug. She didn't look proud. She simply stood there, calm and professional, as if speaking multiple languages was the most normal thing in the world. Victor stared at her for a moment, then scoffed. You probably memorized a few phrases. Parlor tricks. Lena tilted her head slightly. Would you like me to continue in German, sir? Or perhaps Italian? The room went very quiet. Victor felt something unfamiliar rising in his chest. Embarrassment. He laughed again, but this time it sounded forced. Fine. Impress me, German. Lena's voice changed seamlessly. Keen problem. When Sie mich ten kann ich Ihnen auch die Zudeten, Jeeds Garrix, genau Erklis genau, Erkleron, a man at another table clapped softly before stopping himself. Victor slammed his hand lightly on the table, not in anger, but frustration. He had wanted to humiliate her. Instead, he had become the show. Why? He snapped. Why are you working here? Lena met his eyes, unflinching. Because it's honest work, she said in English, and because I enjoy it. That's not an answer, Victor said. With skills like that, you could be doing something better. Lena smiled politely. Better is relative, sir. That hit him harder than any insult. As the main course arrived, Victor was unusually quiet. He ate slowly, distracted, glancing at Lena every time she passed by. For the first time in years, he was questioning his own assumptions. Finally, when she returned to check on him, he sighed. All right, he said, you win. Lena raised an eyebrow slightly. Win what, sir? He reached into his jacket, pulled out his wallet, and placed several crisp bills on the table. The money, more than I promised. She didn't touch it. I didn't do this for the money, she said calmly. That stunned him. Then why? He asked. Lena took a breath. Because people like you think language, intelligence, and worth are visible at first glance. They aren't. Victor leaned back, silent. She continued, her voice still gentle, not accusatory. I speak 5 languages, not to impress strangers, but because my parents taught me that understanding others is the greatest skill you can have. Victor looked away. For the first time that night, he felt small. The restaurant slowly returned to its normal hum, but something had changed. People weren't watching Lena anymore. They were watching Victor. When the check arrived, Victor stood up, straightened his jacket, and looked at Lena again. You're wasted here, he said quietly. Lena shook her head. I'm exactly where I need to be. He hesitated, then nodded. If you ever want a different opportunity, he said, sliding a business card across the table, call me. Lena picked up the card, glanced at it, and smiled. Thank you, sir. Victor left without another word. Later that night, Lena counted the tip. It was far more than $1,000. She sighed, shook her head, and split it with the kitchen staff, just like she always did. For Victor, the evening lingered far longer than he expected. Days later, during a board meeting filled with polished executives and loud opinions, he found himself thinking about a quiet waitress who had dismantled his arrogance without raising her voice. And for the first time in his life, he realized something important. Wealth can buy comfort. Power can command attention. But humility has to be learned. And sometimes, it's taught by the very people you least expect. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes first impressions tell the whole story. Because, as you've just seen, sometimes the most powerful voices are the ones we almost ignore.